Okay, so let's talk about your other power brand now, KFC. That's been doing spectacularly well, and what a power brand it has been, right? What's the vision for that? What's the expansion plan?
You look at KFC and it's just a powerhouse brand. And the trajectory of the brand over the last 5 years has been just stunning.
Yes.
I think we have gone back to the roots. We are unapologetically chicken. And so once a core consumer loves the brand, then from there we are able to expand the reach, the outer reaches of the brand and bring in new consumers. There's a big macro trend at play, which is that as disposable income increases, as per capita GDP increases, you find that animal protein consumption increases. So there was a recent National Food Health Survey done by the government. That survey shows that chicken consumption or animal protein consumption has increased 8x over the last 20 years, from 400 grams to some 3.2 kgs, and expected to triple or quadruple in the next 7-8 years. Now, this is one big macro trend. And the second trend is that among animal protein in Asia especially and in India, chicken is perhaps 90% of the animal protein that is consumed. So today when you think of chicken, you think of KFC.
KFC. Yeah.
And so that's what makes the brand. And again, like I said, production processes are very different. So from raw chicken to marination to breading to frying, everything is done at the store. And that's why the food is so tasty, it's so fresh, and it's just fantastic.
Well, yes, Sanjay, but the other thing in terms of the business is that people regularly compare you with the other franchisee holder as well, Devyani International. And there have been multiple talks of whether at some point of time there could be a merger or there is a concern about the overlap of certain territories. How would you answer that?
So 6 years ago, there was an opportunity for Yum perhaps to consolidate everything under one franchisee. For whatever reason they chose to bring Sapphire Foods in. And when we came in, we were excited with this QSR opportunity, and I think it's a multi-decade opportunity. So from our perspective, we want to build this food space. We want to build KFC and Pizza Hut in India, and like I said, perhaps a third brand in the future. So from all that I can do is focus on what I see here and now, which is the opportunity that is in front of us. How do we make the best of it?
But is there any concern in terms of overlapping of territories or any possibility of a merger of sorts at some point of time?
So I would say categorically no.
Okay.
There's no overlap in territories in KFC, but there's some overlap in Pizza Hut. But the formats that we operate are also different, and therefore there's no overlap in the format.
So we've talked about KFC, we've talked about Pizza Hut, but one concern that the street had this year was the entire economic turmoil that we have seen in Sri Lanka, right? And operations, I'm sure, were affected for you as well. How are things on the ground now?
So I would say as a country, things are still critical but stable. Okay. So operating conditions have improved. Now the blackout hours are much lesser. We are able to get fuel, we are able to get LPG, we are able to import stuff. So from an operating perspective, things are, I would say, 90% normal.
Okay.
However, inflation is a big concern there, and inflation has been 80-90%. We've had to take price increases in the region of 40-50%. There's been a gross margin erosion, and therefore it's tough on the consumer's wallet. Now, having said that, Pizza Hut, especially in Sri Lanka, is a powerhouse brand. In fact, Sri Lanka is the only country in the world where Pizza Hut is the #1 QSR brand.
Wow.
And I think the way that we run it in Sri Lanka is outstanding. So we've got certain advantages. We run the omni-channel format in Sri Lanka, dine-in, delivery and takeaway. In fact, the India experience is a little bit of a takeaway from what we do in Sri Lanka. We've just got other competitive advantage. We do our own delivery there. The brand is very strong. innovation pipeline is very strong. So during this period, we've continued to gain market share in Sri Lanka. And I think from every perspective, we feel that we've got to double down on the country right now. And as it starts to improve and consumer wallet starts to, the pain on the consumer wallet starts to ease, we will be able to reap the benefits of what we are doing today from from just doubling down on the brand. So we continue to expand. So this year itself, we'll open nearly 20, 21 stores in Sri Lanka. So I think the opportunity exists. This will take perhaps 2-3 years to tide over, but the brand itself is very strong.
Okay, so 20 to 30 stores in Sri Lanka, but what about back home? What's the store addition plan in terms of numbers? Where do you see yourself, let's say, 3 to 5 years from here on?
So in February of this year, when we announced our Q3 results, we had ended up December with about 550 restaurants. And what we guided the market was, we expect us to be able to double this count over the next 3 to 4 years' time, which means roughly 130 to 160 stores. We opened 142 stores last year, and we are on track this year also to be able to hit these numbers.
But do you track the stock prices very closely? Is that something which is an everyday thing for you?
I must confess that I don't look at the stock price. I perhaps look at it on a Saturday. How has it ended? And we've got our investor relations team that sends out a mail on Monday, with the ending stock price. I think from the team's perspective, we can do the best that we can do to influence the stock price is run our business really well. And therefore, my focus, the team's focus is just do the right things with the business. Everything else will follow, including the stock price. So I think that's where my focus is.
It's good to hear that is where your focus is, because you're in a situation which I don't envy at all, because you have to talk to your PE investors, you have to talk to your investors. Plus there is Yum Brands, the owner of the franchisee that you have to deal with, plus another franchisee manager as well in terms of Devyani International. How difficult is the decision making regarding menu setting, prices, etc.? Because I understand you can't do it on your own, right? The price setting, etc.
We operate in what we call a cooperative or a co-op. So it is Sapphire, Yum, Devyani, all of us come together to take the big decisions on the brand. And it might seem difficult, but I've seen it over the last 6-7 years, and it's quite easy. Actually, you're now harnessing the ideas that 3 different entities would have. Our objectives are common. Our objectives are the same. And therefore, any product idea or pricing idea that comes from anywhere, it's put on the table and all 3 of us work together. And therefore, it sees light of day. It also reflects in how we source ingredients. So we are able to use common strength to be able to get the best possible pricing and so on. So I think it's a collaborative partnership rather than each one of us trying to do things on our own.
So Sanjay, one overhang on the stock has been the possibility of supply into the stock markets with the private equity players perhaps looking at an exit. How would you want to answer that?
Yeah. So private equity is much misunderstood in India. Everyone thinks private equity has only a medium-term life. In our case, actually our promoter, Samara Capital, has had a multi-decade view on the category and on Sapphire Foods. And they are part of the promoter group. They came in 7 years ago and they continue. And part of their shareholding is locked up in perpetuity. Having said that, when we started, there were 4 private equity players that set up Sapphire Foods. One of them exited a year and a half ago. We got another player, Edelweiss, who came in a pre-IPO, through their pre-IPO fund. They exited about 4 months ago. And it's likely now that there are perhaps 2 of our original private equity investors who might be looking at some level of encashment of their initial investment. Having said that, it's important that the principal promoter group is quite strong and quite stable.
So is that the block that Street is worried about? The two PE investors who are looking at an exit?
Yeah.
What could be the size of it?
So I won't say anyone's worried about it because there's sufficient demand, that I think, that has been created, and there are a lot of people evincing interest in Sapphire Foods. In fact, if you see over the last 1 year, there was some article that said the number of domestic institutional investors in Sapphire Foods, the percentage of domestic, is among the top 10 of all IPOs that have been done over the last 12 to 15 months. So having said that, like I said, there are perhaps one or two of our earliest stage investors who might be looking at encashing some portion of their stake.
So who will come on board then? Are you looking at another private equity player to take more role in the business, or is it going to be offloaded in the open market?
So really it's nothing that I am influencing. Like I said, me and my team are focused on the business. There are enough and more people who would be interested in getting into Sapphire and actually being with us over this multi-decade opportunity. So it's really left up to the sellers to find the buyers, but I think there's enough and more demand for the stock.
What about life beyond business? What keeps Sanjay busy?
Yeah. So I think work, first of all, is as much work as much as it is a hobby. So I love my work. But having said that, there's just so much more to life. I love to cook. I love food. I love Hindi film music.
Wow.
I love sport. I play golf. I dive. I'm a passionate scuba diver. I love to read. I love to travel. So there's just so much more,
There's so much more to Sanjay than just a group CEO at Sapphire Foods, right? So let me put you on a spot. Please sing a song for us. Any Hindi song that you like, your favorite.
Are you serious, Anisha?
Yes, please.
Are you serious?
Please do that. It'll be quite fun.
Yeah, let me do a song that I like to sing. बड़े अच्छे लगते हैं, बड़े अच्छे लगते हैं, ये धरती, ये नदिया, ये रहना और अनीशा.
Wow, you've got me blushing on that. Thank you so much for that. On that note, we'll wrap up the conversation. Sanjay, you've been an excellent sport. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Anisha, and thank you, ET Now.